Next, let's talk about how to edit attributes we've already created in Maya. When we say edit, we're mainly talking about modifying these properties from the Create menu. Of course, there are some extra properties too. We'll look at them one by one. A lot of the settings we can actually modify directly on the attribute itself. If we look into the scene, I've now added two attributes to this object we have selected. One is called floatAttr, and the other one I added is an enum attribute, so it has a drop-down menu. Let's edit them now. We'll select one of the attributes and then right-click. This way a menu will pop up. In here we can see a lot of options. Editing an attribute is mainly about these few options at the bottom. Lock, unlock, hide, lock and hide, make selected non-keyable, and make selected keyable. So what do these all mean? Let's start with this bottom two. Keyable and non-keyable. We talked about this when we were creating attributes. It's very simple. Keyable means this attribute can have keyframes set on it. Non-keyable means this attribute cannot have keyframes set on it when we were creating it. If we remember, by default, all attributes are keyable. When I created this, I also selected keyable. If we look at my value, there's no light gray box in front of it. That means this attribute can be keyframed. But now I want to change it so it cannot be keyframed. So we'll right-click and here's Make Selected Non-Keyable. Now if we look at this value again, it has a light gray color in front of it. This means this attribute no longer accepts keyframes. If I press S on the keyboard now, this attribute will not be keyframed. Let's undo that. If I want to change it back so it can accept keyframes, same thing, we right-click and find Make Selected Keyable. Now if I press S on the keyboard, we'll see this attribute also gets keyframed. Okay, next are these ones up here. For these ones, first there's a new concept we need to look at. It's called lock selected. What is lock? It's just what it sounds like. It locks this selected attribute. When we lock it, if I try to middle mouse drag to slide and change the value, I can't do it. Or if I try to type in a value to change it, I can't do that either. Why? Because this attribute has been locked. When would we typically use lock? For us, lock is generally used when there's an attribute that we absolutely do not want anyone to touch. We'll lock it because if we leave it unlocked, when an animator is animating, they might accidentally change its value. This could cause our rig to produce some effects we don't want. So to be safe, we lock all attributes like this. Of course, since we've locked it, if we press S on the keyboard, it won't receive any keyframes either. And corresponding to that, if we lock an attribute, how do we unlock it? We right-click and there's an unlock option. When we unlock it, it goes back to being a normal attribute. Let's look further down. Next is hide selected. Hide attribute. We should be very familiar with this. We had this option when we were creating it. It just removes it from our channel box. At this point, I'll remind everyone about Maya's logic. When it's hidden, it automatically sets the attribute to non-keyable. It won't accept any keyframes. And then there's lock and hide selected. This doesn't just hide it, it also locks it. This is an option we use very often, because generally if we don't want animators to touch it, we usually add a double layer of protection. We both lock it so the value can be changed, and we hide it from our channel box. This way our channel box looks cleaner. All the attributes in our channel box are ones the animator can actually modify. Everything else we just hide. That makes it much clearer. So here, for example, I'll lock and hide this attribute. We can do the same for the built-in translate, rotate, and scale. For example, I'll hide the rotate attributes, but not lock them. And I'll lock and hide scale. So I've hidden a lot of attributes. When we've hidden a lot of attributes, another problem this brings up is, how do I get these hidden attributes back into the channel box? The way to do this is in Edit, we can find this option called Channel Control. Let's open it. In here, we'll see Maya has 3 columns. The one on the far left is keyable. The middle is non-keyable hidden. The right is non-keyable displayed. What does this mean? The left is all attributes that can accept keyframes. The middle is attributes that don't accept keyframes and are hidden. The right is attributes that don't accept keyframes but are displayed. When we were talking about creating attributes, we mentioned Maya's logic is that all attributes that accept keyframes are by default displayed in the channel box. When we hide it, it automatically sets it to non-keyable. It won't accept keyframes. But we can also take attributes that don't accept keyframes and display them in our channel box. So here with this tool, we're mainly trying to find those hidden attributes and how to get them back into our channel box. As we can see, there are a lot of attributes here, so we need to find the corresponding ones. We just hit the rotate and scale. So we find rotate and find scale. We can hold Ctrl to add to the selection. And also I have this float adder attribute that I created. We can select all of this, then look at the bottom right. There's a button to move them to the left. Let's move them over. Now we can see these attributes are back in our channel box. Next, we need to unlock them. To unlock, we can use the method we just used. I personally think that method is the most convenient. Select our attributes and just unlock them. Another method, as we can see, our channel control window also has a tab that says locked. If we click it, we'll see two columns. The left is all locked attributes. The right is all unlocked attributes. So we can also select these and move them to the right. That will also produce the same effect. Two different ways, it just depends on which one we're used to. Next, we still have some of the settings from when we created the attribute. How do we modify those? We can select an attribute and in Edit, find this Edit Attribute option. Let's click that open. We need to be careful here. If I don't select any attribute, I can't click this menu. So we must select an attribute first, then click it. Another inconvenient thing here is, after we open this menu, we have to manually select our attribute again. It's not like when I open it, it automatically selects it for us. We still have to reselect it. Okay, let's look at this float adder first. This attribute, we can see, first, it has a new name. What is new name? New name is the same as long name from before. It just means if we want to change the attribute's name in the system, we can change it here. Let's change it to new float adder. Okay, after I press enter, we can see its name has changed here. And our nice name below also updates automatically. Of course, we can also override our nice name here. I can write whatever I want here. I can add some weird characters in front. It's all allowed. Next, we can see here we can also change between keyable, displayable, and hidden. And we can also set its value range. For example, here, I can turn on both the maximum and the minimum. Let's say from -10 to +20. Okay, so now if I try to change it, we'll see the lowest I can go is -10 and the highest I can go is 20. And if I don't like this maximum value, I want to remove the maximum, I can just uncheck it. This way, it becomes infinitely large. Okay, let's keep going and look at the enum attribute. The enum has a drop-down menu. The settings at the top are no different from before. What's different is this enum names menu at the bottom. This is exactly the same as when we were creating the attribute. Let's check here. I have Apple. Let's say I want to change it to Tom. I can modify them here. Now we'll see the first one has become Tom. And if I want to add one, I can also add one at the bottom. Add a Jerry. This way I have 4 options. The logic is still the same. For the Maya system, it doesn't really care what these names are. What it cares about is the corresponding index number 0, 1, 2, 3, like that. Some of us might be asking, so for this custom attribute we made, we can give it limits, a minimum and a maximum. Can we set a limit for translate, rotate, and scale? Yes, we can. It's just that we can't set it in this edit attribute menu, because this edit attribute menu only works on these custom attributes. So what do? We select our object, press Ctrl+A to go to the attribute editor. Still under the transform node, translate, rotate, scale are all here. We'll see there's a tab here called the limit information. Let's open it. In here, we'll see translate, rotate, and scale. For example, let's open translate. Here we can see there's a trans limit X. There's a min and max. For example, let's check both of these. And I'll set it from say -10 to +20. So now let's try to translate it. We can see when I move to -10, I can't move it back any further. When I move to +20, I can't move it forward any further either. So this is how we set limits for translate, rotate, and scale. So that's our brief explanation of how to edit attributes.